You've played chess maybe 100 times. You know the knight looks like a horse. The rook looks like a castle tower. The king wears a cross. But there's one piece on that board with a shape that makes no sense at all. A tall, smooth cone with a single diagonal slit cut into its head, like someone took a knife to it and stopped halfway. You've picked it up, turned it in your fingers, maybe even called it a hat. Nobody ever tells you why it looks like that. Not your dad, not your chess. Teacher, not even the box it came in. Chess historians have a name for this strange little scar. They call it the mitre slit, the fossil groove, a piece of geometry that isn't decoration at all. It's a scar tissue of history. And once you understand what actually happened to leave that mark, you'll never look at a chessboard the same way again. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll understand that the bishop isn't hiding a hat. It's hiding an animal. Here's the thing that should bother you. Every other piece on the board is a clean, legible symbol. The pawn is a soldier. The queen wears a crown. Design-wise, chess is one of the most efficient visual languages ever built. You can recognize every piece from across a room, even as a beginner. So why does the bishop break the pattern? Why is it the one piece that requires an adult to explain, "That's a bishop's hat," in a tone that suggests even they aren't fully convinced? The answer isn't about religion at all. It's about a 1,200-year game of telephone played across continents, languages, and one very confused generation of European wood carvers. Chess didn't start in Europe. It started in northern India, sometime around the 6th century, as a game called Chaturanga, a battlefield simulator representing the 4 divisions of an ancient army: infantry, cavalry, chariots, and elephants. That's right, elephants. War elephants were a real and terrifying military asset in South Asian warfare. And the piece we now call the bishop was, quite literally, an elephant. In Persian, when the game migrated west, it kept that identity. The piece was called pil, meaning elephant. Simple enough, a game piece shaped like a small elephant, tusks and all. Now the game moves again, into the Islamic world, through the Arabic-speaking Middle East, and this is where things get complicated. Classical Arabic had no native word for elephant as a chess term the way Persian did, so the piece became al-fil, the elephant, borrowed almost directly. But Islamic art at the time, especially in religiously conservative regions, discouraged detailed figurative carving of living creatures. So craftsmen making chess sets couldn't just sculpt a little elephant anymore. Instead, they abstracted it. 2 small carved bumps or projections at the top of an otherwise plain piece, meant to represent the tusks, or in some sets, the elephant's raised ears. The elephant was still there. It just wasn't recognizable as one anymore, even to educated players. Fast forward to medieval Europe, around the 11th and 12th centuries. Chess arrives via trade routes through Spain and Italy, and Europeans have never seen a war elephant in their lives. They're staring at a small wooden object with 2 carved horn-like nubs on top, and they have absolutely no cultural reference point for elephant tusks abstractly rendered as bumps. So they do what humans always do with unfamiliar shapes. They reinterpret it using something they do recognize. 2 bumps side by side with a groove between them. To a medieval European carver, that reads as something entirely different. A folded piece of cloth, a jester's cap, or, most persistently, the split peak of a bishop's mitre, the ceremonial hat worn by Christian bishops. The 2 tusks got squeezed into a single notch. The elephant didn't just get abstracted anymore. It got replaced conceptually by clergy. You'd assume at this point that the story is over. An elephant slowly morphs into a bishop's hat through a chain of honest visual mistakes, culture to culture, and that's just a quirky footnote. Except it isn't quite that innocent. The switch to bishop wasn't just an accident of misreading a shape. It happened at the exact moment chess was being absorbed into European feudal and religious society, a period when bishops held enormous secular power, often more political and military authority than dukes or barons. Multiple European chess, Traditions didn't converge on bishop, purely because the carving looked churchy. In France, the same piece became fou, the fool or jester, not clergy at all. In Russia, it's slon, literally still elephant, preserved almost perfectly across 1,000 years. The mitre slit shape was ambiguous enough that different cultures projected entirely different institutions onto the exact same physical scar. England and parts of the English-speaking world just happened to land on bishop because the shape resembled ecclesiastical dress worn by the actual bishops, who at the time were literally advising kings and commanding troops. The piece didn't become a bishop because it looked like one. It became a bishop because European society needed the board to mirror its own power structure, and the ambiguous shape let every region invent its own version of the ruling class. The evidence for this is remarkably well preserved. The Lewis chessmen, carved from walrus ivory around 1150–1200 and discovered on the Isle of Lewis in Scotland in 1831, show bishops as fully robed clergy holding croziers, proof that by the 12th century, the transformation in Britain was already complete and deliberate. Meanwhile, in Persian and later Indian sets from the same centuries, archaeologists and chess historians have catalogued surviving pieces still showing recognizable elephant tusk motifs, some with tiny carved trunks. Linguistically, the split is even starker. In Spanish, it's alfil, a hautetium, near direct descendant of the Arabic alfil, the elephant, unchanged for over 1,000 years. In Italian, alfiere, meaning standard bearer. In German, Läufer. The runner, referencing the piece's diagonal movement rather than its shape at all. Out of roughly a dozen major chess-playing linguistic traditions, historians have identified at least 5 distinct conceptual identities for this single piece: elephant, jester, standard bearer, runner, bishop, all descending from one ambiguous, carved notch. So here's the shape of what actually happened, laid out plainly. 1. India, a real war elephant, fully depicted. 2. Persia, the same elephant, named directly, still recognizable. 3. The Islamic world, figurative carving restricted, elephant abstracted into 2 tusk nubs. 4. Europe, no cultural reference for elephants, nubs reinterpreted through local symbols, clergy in England, jesters in France, standard bearers in Italy. 5. Today, the physical shape is 1, fossilized, unchanged for centuries, while its meaning fractured into whatever each culture needed it to represent. The crack in the bishop's head isn't a hat. It's the last visible joint left over from an elephant's tusks, preserved by accident, reinterpreted by necessity, across 4 languages and 2 religions. So next time you pick up that piece and turn it in your fingers, you're not holding a miniature clergyman. You're holding the fossilized memory of an Indian war elephant, filtered through Persian trade routes, reshaped by Islamic artistic law, and finally reimagined by European carvers who simply didn't have the reference to know any better. It's a small, strange reminder of something bigger than chess. The objects and symbols we inherit rarely mean what we assume they mean. Most of what surrounds us is a compressed archive of translation errors, cultural substitutions, and centuries of people confidently mislabeling something they didn't fully understand. And building entire traditions on top of the mistake. If a 2,000-year-old elephant can hide inside a chess piece without anyone noticing, imagine what else is sitting in plain sight, wearing a disguise nobody's bothered to question. If you want more of these hidden histories pulled out of everyday objects, subscribe, because the next one might be sitting on your desk right now.